The conference chamber floated in the void between stars, a massive structure built by the Galactic Council 300 years ago. Inside, representatives from 47 different species sat in their designated sections, breathing different atmospheres, existing at different temperatures, all separated by advanced barrier technology. Today's emergency session had been called because of the war. The war in the Valorian cluster had been going on for 32 years. 3 empires fought each other with such hatred that entire planets had been burned to ash. The Gentar hegemony, the Cathrel Collective, and the Dravic Union had turned 17 star systems into graveyards. Billions were dead. Trillions of credits worth of resources had been destroyed. And still they fought. Ambassador Thelmon of the Gentar stood at his podium. His species looked like tall, thin beings covered in silver scales that reflected the chamber's lights. He spoke with a voice that sounded like wind chimes. The Dravic attacked our colony at Valorian Prime without warning. 3 million souls perished in the first hour. We had no choice but to respond with force. Across the chamber, General Krax of the Dravic Union slammed his massive fist on his podium. The Dravic were huge creatures, built like walking mountains with thick gray skin and 4 powerful arms. Lies. Your spies sabotaged our fuel depot at Korath Station. 800 of our warriors died when the station exploded. You struck first, as you always do. The Cathrel representative said nothing. The Cathrel never spoke in the traditional sense. They were a hive mind species, millions of small insect-like beings that moved together as one consciousness. Their representative was actually a swarm of 10,000 individual creatures that formed the shape of a humanoid figure. The swarm simply pulsed with red light, which their translator converted to text on everyone's displays. Both sides attacked Cathrel civilian transports. We defended ourselves. Now we will see both empires destroyed. Council mediator Vornal, a floating jellyfish-like creature from the peaceful consortium, tried to restore order. Please, representatives. We have been over this same ground for 3 decades. The Council has called this emergency session because we have received disturbing intelligence. All 3 of your empires are moving your entire fleets to the Valorian cluster. Every warship you possess. This suggests you are preparing for a final, decisive battle. Yes, Thelmon said simply. We are tired of this stalemate. The Gentar hegemony will crush our enemies once and for all. The Dravic Union will show no mercy this time. Krax growled. We will erase the other empires from existence. The Cathrel swarm pulsed again. Total war. No survivors. A heavy silence fell over the chamber. Finally, mediator Vornal spoke in a sad, quiet voice. Then we have failed. The Council has failed. We cannot stop you. We can only witness the end of 3 great civilizations, and mourn the countless lives that will be lost. Perhaps not all is lost, a new voice said. Every representative turned to look at the human section. It was a small area, barely noticeable, tucked away in a corner of the great chamber. Humanity had only joined the Galactic Council 8 months ago. They were new, primitive, barely able to travel faster than light. Most species barely noticed them. The human ambassador stood up. Her name was Maria Santos, and she was a small woman with brown skin and dark hair pulled back in a simple style. She wore a plain gray suit with a small flag on her shoulder showing the planet Earth. She looked very ordinary compared to the exotic aliens around her. Ambassador Santos, mediator Vornal said, sounding surprised. Does humanity wish to speak? Yes, mediator. We would like to offer our assistance. The chamber erupted in sounds that the universal translators struggled to process. Some species laughed, others made sounds of disbelief. The Gentar ambassador actually turned away as if insulted. General Krax spoke and his voice was full of contempt. Humans. Your species just learned to build proper starships 2 years ago. You have no colonies outside your own star system. Your largest warship is smaller than our cargo transports. What could you possibly offer? Ambassador Santos remained calm. We offer mediation, peacekeeping. We have experience with ending conflicts that seem impossible to resolve. Experience? The Cathrel swarm pulsed sarcastically. You have been in space for less than 1 of your decades. You know nothing of galactic warfare. That's true, Santos said. We are new to space. But we are not new to war. Humanity has fought wars for thousands of years. We have nearly destroyed ourselves multiple times. We have learned hard lessons about the cost of endless conflict. We are offering to share those lessons. Thelmon finally turned to look at her. You compare your primitive planetary conflicts to a war between star empires? You are children playing with toys while we wield forces that can crack planets. Perhaps, Santos said, but children sometimes see things that adults miss. And more importantly, the Galactic Council Charter, which all of you signed, allows any member species to volunteer for peacekeeping operations in contested zones. Mediator Vornal's tentacles twitched with what might have been surprise. That is, technically correct. But Ambassador Santos, surely you understand that sending human ships into the Valorian cluster would be suicide. This will be the largest space battle in recorded history. Your entire fleet would be destroyed in minutes. We understand the risk, Santos said. We are willing to take it if it means saving lives. General Krax laughed, a sound like falling rocks. I have seen intelligence reports on human military capability. You have 42 warships total. 42. My empire has 12,000. This is not bravery. This is stupidity. Nevertheless, Santos said firmly, humanity formally requests permission to deploy peacekeeping forces to the Valorian cluster under Council authority. The three warring empires looked at each other. Then almost in unison they seemed to shrug. Let them come, Thelmon said. Let them witness real power before they die. Perhaps it will teach other young species not to interfere in matters beyond their understanding. Agreed, Krax said. The humans can serve as a warning. The Cathrel swarm pulsed. Acceptable. More debris for the void. Mediator Vornal looked at Ambassador Santos with sad eyes. Are you certain? Your government can still recall this request. We are certain, Mediator. Humanity stands ready. Then may the cosmos have mercy on you, Vornal said quietly. Permission granted. Though I suspect we will be holding memorial services for your species very soon. The session ended. As the ambassadors filed out, none of them noticed the small smile on Maria Santos's face. None of them paid attention to the encrypted message she sent to Earth Command, and none of them bothered to check the detailed military intelligence reports that had been sitting in their databases for months, marked as low priority because they were about humans. If they had checked, they would have seen something interesting. The report said humanity had 42 warships. But those reports were 6 months old. And in 6 months, humanity could accomplish a great deal when properly motivated. Far away from the Council station in the Sol system, alarms began to sound. Not panic alarms. These were deployment alarms. In orbital shipyards around Earth, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, massive docking clamps released their hold on warships. Ships that had never been listed in any official registry. Ships that had been built in absolute secrecy using technology that humanity had reverse-engineered and improved upon with frightening speed. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UHSF Indomitable, humanity's first true warship carrier. Around her, holographic displays showed the entire human defense fleet coming to life. She was a tall woman with short gray hair and eyes that had seen too much combat on Earth. She had fought in the African Wars, the Pacific conflict, and the European unification. Now she would fight in space. And status report, she said calmly. Her tactical officer, Commander James Park, read from his display. All fleet elements responding. Total count, 847 warships now active and ready for deployment. Do the Gentar, Dravik, or Cathrel have any surveillance assets in the Sol system? Negative, Admiral. They stopped watching us months ago. They think we're irrelevant. Good. Let's keep it that way until we arrive. Helm, prepare the fleet for quantum jump. Set destination for the Valorian cluster. All ships are to maintain complete communications silence from this point forward. Stealth systems to maximum. Admiral, Park said carefully. The orders from Earth Command are clear. We are to observe the Council Charter. We can only fire if fired upon. Chen smiled coldly. Commander, I have read the orders very carefully. Multiple times. We are authorized to use any necessary force to establish peace in the region. The definition of necessary will be determined by the fleet commander. That's me. Yes, ma'am. Besides, Chen continued, we're not going there to negotiate. The time for talking is over. Those three empires have had 32 years to find peace. They've chosen genocide instead. We're not peacekeepers, Commander. We're humanity's answer to a simple question. What happens when you refuse to stop killing each other? And what is the answer, Admiral? We stop you, permanently if necessary. The fleet began to move. 847 warships, each one incorporating technology that would make the three warring empires question everything they thought they knew about physics. Quantum drives that didn't just bend space but temporarily rewrote it. Weapon systems that operated on principles the aliens had never even theorized. Shield technology that humanity had spent the last 6 months perfecting, after studying every available alien design and finding all their weaknesses. In the Valorian cluster, the three great fleets continued to gather. The Gentar brought their elegant cruisers with laser arrays that could slice through moons. The Dravik assembled their fortress ships with armor thick enough to withstand nuclear strikes. The Cathrel swarmed in with millions of small drone fighters, each one controlled by the collective consciousness. None of them knew what was coming. Admiral Chen looked out at the stars as her ship prepared to jump. "How long until we reach the cluster?" "At maximum quantum velocity, 16 hours, Admiral." "Then let's not waste time. All ships initiate jump on my mark. Remember, full stealth when we arrive. I want every sensor array in that cluster to be asking questions. I want those three empires to be confused, off balance, and worried. And then," Park asked, "then we see if they're smart enough to surrender, before we have to show them why humanity survived every war we ever fought. Why we're still here despite trying to destroy ourselves 100 times over. We're going to teach them the most important lesson we ever learned." "What lesson is that?" Admiral Chen's expression was hard as steel. "That there are things worse than losing a war. And one of those things is winning a war against humanity." The fleet jumped. 847 ships vanished from the Sol system in perfect silence, traveling faster than light toward a war zone that was about to discover why every species that had ever threatened humanity on Earth had eventually learned to fear them. The Council thought they were sending lambs to slaughter. They were about to learn they had unleashed wolves instead. The Valorian cluster was a region of space containing 23 star systems, all connected by ancient jump gates built by a civilization long dead. Right now, it was the most dangerous place in the known galaxy. 3 massive fleets occupied different sections of the cluster, each one preparing for a battle that would decide the fate of empires. Supreme Commander Zelthus of the Gentar hegemony stood in his command chamber aboard the flagship Eternal Glory. The ship was 3 kilometers long, covered in reflective silver armor that caught the light of nearby stars. Around it, 2,000 other Gentar vessels maintained perfect formation. Zelthus was old even by his species standards. His scales had turned from silver to gold with age. He had commanded fleets for 60 years. "Status of enemy positions?" he asked his sensor operator. "The Dravik fleet is positioned near the 4th planet of the Valorian system. 1,500 capital ships confirmed. The Cathrel swarm has spread across the asteroid belt. Our analysts estimate 4 million individual drone units." Zelthus nodded slowly. "And they estimate our strength?" "They know we have 2,000 ships, Commander. They are likely confident in their numbers. Let them be confident. Pride comes before destruction. What of those humans the Council mentioned? Have they arrived yet?" The sensor operator made a sound like tinkling bells, which meant amusement. "No, Commander. And frankly, I doubt they will come. The Council record showed they have only 42 primitive vessels. They probably realized how outmatched they would be and stayed home. Wise of them," Zelthus said. "Begin final preparations. We attack in 6 hours. This war ends today." On the other side of the cluster, General Crack stood in the war room of his flagship, the Unbreakable Mountain. Unlike the elegant Gentar ships, Dravik vessels were brutal and practical. They looked like flying fortresses, all thick armor and massive weapons. Cracks studied the holographic display showing enemy positions. "The Gentar think their numbers give them advantage," he growled to his officers. "They forget that one Dravik warrior is worth 10 of their fragile soldiers. And the Cathrel are just insects. No strategy, no honor. Just mindless swarming." "Sir," his intelligence officer said, "there is one irregularity. The Galactic Council sent a message saying a peacekeeping force would be arriving soon." "Peacekeeping? In the middle of a war?" Cracks laughed. "Who did they send?" "The humans, sir." The entire command room went silent for a moment. Then Cracks laughed even harder. "Humans! Those primitives who just discovered quantum drives. This is the Council's idea of peacekeeping? Sending children to stop a war between empires?" His officers joined in the laughter. "Should we even bother tracking them, sir?" the intelligence officer asked. "No. If they are stupid enough to come here, we will destroy them along with everyone else. Focus all sensors on real threats." Far below the plane of the star system, spread across the vast asteroid belt, the Cathrell Collective maintained its formation. To an outside observer, it looked like chaos. Millions of small drone ships, each no bigger than a car, moving in seemingly random patterns. But to the collective consciousness that controlled them all, it was perfect order. The Cathrell did not have individual commanders. Every drone was connected to every other drone through quantum entanglement. They shared one mind across millions of bodies. Right now, that mind was calculating attack patterns, running millions of simulations preparing for the battle. A small portion of the collective's attention noticed the council message about human peacekeepers. The collective analyzed the threat level. Negligible. Probability of human fleet affecting the outcome of battle, 0.003%. Decision, ignore. The three empires continued their preparations, completely focused on each other. Their sensor nets watched each other carefully, tracking every ship movement, every energy spike, every communication. They were so focused on known threats that they almost missed it when something impossible appeared on their sensors. Almost. It started as small anomalies. Quantum fluctuations at the edge of the cluster that made no sense. Sensor operators on all three sides noticed strange readings that appeared and disappeared too quickly to analyze. At first they assumed it was natural phenomena or sensor glitches. Then the readings got stronger. On the Eternal Glory, the sensor operator suddenly sat up straight. Commander Zelthus, I'm detecting multiple quantum signatures entering the cluster. Unknown origin. Zelthus moved to the sensor station. How many? I'm not sure, sir. The readings are strange. They keep appearing and disappearing. It's almost like something is jumping in and out of normal space, but that's impossible. Our technology can't do that, and neither can the Dravik or Cathrell. Show me. The display lit up with hundreds of blinking dots scattered across a three-dimensional map of the cluster. They appeared in seemingly random locations, stayed for a few seconds, then vanished only to reappear somewhere else. Could it be a new Cathrell tactic? Zelthus asked. No, sir. The quantum signatures are completely different. These are much more sophisticated. And, sir, the energy readings are enormous. Whatever these are, they're putting out power levels comparable to our largest dreadnoughts. Zelthus felt a strange sensation, something he hadn't felt in many years. Uncertainty. Contact the Dravik and Cathrell on emergency channels. Ask if they're seeing this too. Aboard the Unbreakable Mountain, General Krax was having the same conversation. What do you mean you can't identify them? Either they're Gentar ships or Cathrell drones. Sir, they're neither, his sensor officer insisted. The technology is completely unknown. And sir, our targeting systems can't lock onto them. They're using some kind of stealth technology that's far beyond anything in our databases. How many are there? Impossible to say, sir. At least several hundred. Possibly more. Several hundred unknown warships just appeared in the middle of our battle zone, and you don't know where they came from. Krax's voice was dangerously quiet. Sir, we're working on it. But whatever they are, they're using technology we've never seen before. Wait, sir, I'm receiving a transmission from the Gentar. They're asking if we're seeing the same thing. Tell them yes. And tell them we're calling a temporary ceasefire until we identify this new threat. The Cathrell Collective was experiencing something close to confusion, which was very unusual for a hive mind. The quantum signatures didn't match any known species. The stealth technology was revolutionary. And most disturbing, the collective couldn't predict what these newcomers would do next. Every simulation came back with error messages. For the first time in 32 years of war, the three empires stopped watching each other and focused on something else. On all three flagships, commanders demanded answers. Who was this? What did they want? And where did they get such advanced technology? Then all at once the quantum signatures stopped jumping around. 847 ships dropped into normal space in perfect geometric formation. They arranged themselves in a sphere that enclosed the entire Valorian cluster, with each ship positioned at mathematically precise points. It was a formation none of the three empires had ever seen before, and now that the ships were stationary, the sensors could finally get clear readings. On the Eternal Glory, the sensor operator's voice shook. Commander, I have identification. Those are human ships. Zelthus stared at the display. That's impossible. Humans have 42 ships, 42 small primitive vessels. Sir, I'm reading 847 distinct signatures. All of them are human design. And sir, they're not small. The largest one is 4 kilometers long. That's bigger than our flagship. That can't be right. Check your instruments. I've checked 3 times, sir. And there's more. I'm analyzing their hull composition and energy signatures. These ships are using quantum technology we didn't even know was possible. Their stealth systems are decades ahead of ours. And sir, the operator paused, his voice barely a whisper. Their weapon signatures are reading at power levels I've never seen before. On the Dravik flagship, General Krax was having a similar reaction. 800 ships? 800? Where did the humans get 800 warships? Sir, they must have been building them in secret. Our intelligence completely missed it. Obviously. Krax slammed his fist on the console. What else do we know? Very little, sir. They're maintaining complete communications silence. They haven't responded to any hails. They're just sitting there, watching us watching. Krax looked at the display. The human ships hung in space like predators waiting for prey to move. Try to target them. Let's see if their defenses are as impressive as their stealth. Sir, our targeting systems can't establish a solid lock. There's some kind of interference. It's like they're distorting space around themselves. The Cathrel Collective was recalculating everything. 847 human ships. Unknown technology. Unknown capabilities. Unknown intentions. The Collective ran probability assessments. Should they attack? Should they wait? Should they communicate? Before the Collective could decide, one of its scout drones moved too close to a human destroyer. The human ship was sleek and dark, barely reflecting any light. The Cathrel drone simply wanted a closer look, to gather more data. The human response was instantaneous. There was no warning, no communication, just action. The Cathrel drone stopped existing. One moment it was there, transmitting data back to the Collective. The next moment there was nothing, not debris, not an explosion, just empty space where the drone had been. The Collective reeled from the shock. It had lost drones before thousands of times, but it had never lost one so completely that there wasn't even wreckage left behind. The drone hadn't been destroyed. It had been erased. All 3 empires saw it happen, and all 3 empires realized the same thing at the same moment. The humans hadn't come to watch. They had come armed with weapons that could make ships vanish from existence. On the Eternal Glory, Commander Zeltha stood very still. Open a channel to the human fleet. All frequencies. I want to speak with their commander. Channel open, sir. This is Supreme Commander Zelthus of the Gentar Hegemony. We acknowledge your arrival in this space. Please identify your intentions. Under Galactic Council law, you must... Static. Nothing but static. Are they receiving? Zelthus asked. Yes, sir. They're definitely receiving our transmission. They're just not responding. On the Dravik flagship, Krax was having the same experience. Human vessels, this is General Krax of the Dravik Union. Respond immediately or we will consider your presence a hostile act. Still nothing. The human ships simply floated in their perfect formation, silent and waiting. The Cathrel Collective tried next, sending complex mathematical patterns that should have been universally understood. The humans received them. The humans said nothing back. Why aren't they talking? Zelthus wondered aloud. What are they waiting for? His tactical officer, a younger Gentar with bright silver scales, spoke carefully. Commander, permission to offer a theory? Granted. Sir, what if they're not waiting? What if this is a deliberate tactic? They arrive with overwhelming force, they display technology we can't match, they erase one of our vessels without warning, and then they say nothing. They're not here to negotiate. They're here to intimidate. Zelthus considered this. You think they're trying to scare us into surrendering without a fight? Perhaps, sir. Or perhaps they're waiting to see what we do next, testing us. Then perhaps we should show them that the Gentar hegemony does not frighten easily. Zelthus turned to his weapons officer. Target the nearest human ship. Fire one warning shot across their bow. If they're here for peacekeeping, they'll understand we mean business. Sir, is that wise? We don't know what they're capable of. That's precisely why we need to find out. Fire. A single beam of coherent light, powerful enough to cut through a small moon, lanced out from the Eternal Glory. It was aimed to miss the human ship by a wide margin. Just a warning, just a demonstration that the Gentar had weapons too. The beam never reached the human ship. It simply disappeared, absorbed by some kind of defensive field that became visible for just a moment before fading again. And then the human fleet moved. 847 ships broke formation simultaneously. They didn't move in predictable patterns. They didn't telegraph their intentions. They simply went from stationary to full combat speed in less than a second, pulling maneuvers that should have turned their crews into paste from the acceleration. Admiral Chen watched the tactical display with cold satisfaction. All ships weapons free. Target priority command vessels first. Rules of engagement, total erasure. I want these empires to understand that we gave them every chance to stand down peacefully. Time to show them what happens when you ignore warnings. Admiral, Commander Park said, all three empires are powering up weapons. They're about to open fire on us. Good, Chen said quietly. Let them shoot first. Let them be the ones who started this. And then let's end it. On all three flagships, commanders gave the same order at the same moment. All ships engaged the human fleet. Fire at will. Thousands of weapons activated. Energy beams, missiles, plasma torpedoes, railgun rounds, and exotic weapons that warped reality itself. All of it directed at the 847 human ships that had dared to enter their war. The human fleet didn't even slow down. They moved through the incoming fire like it wasn't there. And then they began to demonstrate exactly what humanity had learned in 6 months of frantic research and development. They began to show three empires what it meant to fight a species that had spent its entire history perfecting the art of war. The erasure had begun. The first volley from the three empires was massive. Over 15,000 ships fired simultaneously. Energy beams that could melt continents. Missiles carrying warheads powerful enough to crack planets. Plasma weapons hot enough to ignite atmospheres. All of it converged on the human fleet from every direction. The human ships simply weren't there anymore. They had moved. Not with traditional engines that pushed them through space. They had used quantum displacement technology that allowed them to rewrite their position in space-time. One instant they were in the path of the weapons. The next instant they were somewhere else entirely, and the weapons passed harmlessly through empty space. On the Eternal Glory, the sensor operator stared at his displays in disbelief. Commander, they just teleported. Short range, only a few thousand kilometers, but they did it during combat. That's impossible. Commander Zelthus said nothing. He was watching the human ships reappear in new positions, and those positions were very specifically chosen. Each human vessel had moved to a spot where it had a clear line of fire at multiple enemy ships. Incoming fire, the tactical officer shouted. The human weapons were nothing like what the three empires used. They didn't fire energy beams or physical projectiles. Instead, they fired something that looked like dark purple spheres that moved slower than light. Slow enough that the alien ships had time to track them, time to try to dodge, time to try to shoot them down. None of it mattered. When a purple sphere touched a Gentar cruiser, the cruiser simply ceased to exist. There was no explosion, no flash of light, no debris field. The ship was there, and then it wasn't. The sphere passed through the space where the cruiser had been and continued on to the next target. What was that? Zelthus whispered. What kind of weapon just removes matter from existence? His science officer, an elderly Gentar who had studied physics for 100 years, spoke in a shaking voice. Commander, if my readings are correct, that weapon manipulates fundamental quantum states. It's not destroying the ship. It's retroactively preventing the ship from existing in this timeline. It's weaponized causality violation. Speak plainly. They're erasing ships from reality itself, sir. Not just destroying them, erasing them. Those crews didn't die. They were never here at all from the universe's perspective. Zelthus felt cold. How many ships have we lost? 53 and counting, sir. The weapons are slow, but they're impossible to stop. Our shields don't even register them. They pass right through as if our defenses don't exist. The Dravik were having worse luck. Their strategy had always relied on thick armor and strong shields. They built their ships to take punishment and keep fighting. But the human weapons didn't care about armor. Thickness didn't matter when the weapon simply removed everything it touched from existence. General Krax watched as one of his heavy dreadnoughts, the Pride of Dravik, vanished. It was his finest ship, protected by armor plates 6 meters thick, powered by generators that could illuminate a small star. None of it mattered. A purple sphere touched the ship's bow and the entire vessel disappeared in an instant. Return fire, Krax roared. All ships focus on one human vessel at a time. Concentrate fire until we overwhelm whatever defenses they have. 300 Dravik ships turned their weapons on a single human destroyer. They fired everything they had. Energy beams, missiles, railgun rounds, all converging on one small target. The human destroyer's shields came online, visible for the first time. They looked like geometric patterns of golden light that surrounded the ship in complex mathematical shapes. The incoming fire hit the shields and simply stopped. Not deflected, not absorbed. Just stopped, as if the weapons had hit a wall made of frozen time. How powerful are those shields? Krax demanded. Sir, I can't get a reading on their shield strength. They're not operating on any principle, I understand. It's like the shields are placing the ship slightly out of phase with normal spacetime. The weapons are hitting something, but they're not hitting the ship itself. The human destroyer, completely undamaged, returned fire. One purple sphere for each of the 300 ships that had attacked it. Each sphere found its target. 300 Dravik warships vanished from existence in the span of 5 seconds. The Cathrel Collective was learning that its greatest strength was also its greatest weakness. The collective's strategy had always been numbers. Send 1,000,000 drones at a problem until it was solved. Each individual drone was weak, but together they were unstoppable. Except the human weapons didn't care about numbers. Each purple sphere erased its target, whether that target was a single drone or 1,000 drones flying in formation, and the humans had enough weapons to target millions of drones simultaneously. The collective watched as entire swarms vanished. Millions of individual Cathrel consciousnesses went silent in an instant. It was like losing parts of its own mind. The collective tried to adapt, spreading its drones out further, making them harder to target all at once. The humans adapted faster. Their targeting systems tracked millions of individual objects simultaneously and fired with perfect accuracy. For every Cathrel drone that survived, 10 more were erased. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the battle unfold on her holographic displays. It wasn't really a battle. It was an execution. Around her, her crew worked with calm efficiency, calling out targets and confirming erasures. Gentar losses at 40%, Commander Park reported. Dravik losses at 35%. Cathrel losses at 55% and rising. Time elapsed? Chen asked. 11 minutes since first contact, Admiral. 11 minutes. In 11 minutes, the human fleet had erased over half of the largest military force ever assembled in this region of space. Chen felt no satisfaction. This wasn't glorious. This was necessary, but it wasn't something to celebrate. Any signs of surrender? She asked. No, Admiral. All 3 empires are still firing on us and on each other. The Dravik and Gentar are trying to coordinate their attacks. The Cathrel are attempting to swarm individual human ships. How many ships have we lost? 0, Admiral. No casualties. Shields are holding on all vessels. A few ships report shield strength down to 90%, but nothing critical. Chen nodded. Continue engagement, but slow down our fire rate. I want them to understand what's happening. I want them to count each ship they lose. I want them to realize that we could do this faster if we wanted to. She was right. The human weapons could fire much faster, but Chen had ordered her fleet to space out their shots, 1 purple sphere every 3 seconds from each ship, slow enough that the enemy could watch their fleets disappear piece by piece, fast enough that they couldn't mount an effective defense. It was psychological warfare on a massive scale. On the Eternal Glory, Commander Zelthus was experiencing something he had never felt in 60 years of military service. Despair. His fleet was dying, not fighting and losing, just dying. His ships were disappearing, and there was absolutely nothing he could do to stop it. Commander, we've lost over 800 vessels, his tactical officer reported. The young Gentar's scales had lost their shine. Our weapons aren't even scratching their shields. Our ships can't dodge their attacks. Sir, we need to withdraw. Withdraw where? Zelthus asked quietly. They have us surrounded. They're faster than us. They can apparently teleport short distances. Where exactly would we withdraw to? Then? What do we do, sir? Zelthus looked at the display showing the human fleet. The human ships moved with purpose, each one executing its targets methodically. There was no rage in their attacks. No hatred. Just cold, calculated efficiency. They fought like surgeons performing operations, removing each enemy vessel with precision. We have one option left, Zelthus said. We surrender. Sir, look at the display. We can't win this battle. We can't even fight this battle. Every second we continue, more of our people die for nothing. I won't sacrifice my entire fleet because I'm too proud to admit we're beaten. But sir, the hegemony has never surrendered. Not in 300 years. Then it's time we learned how. Zeltha straightened his uniform. Open a channel to the human fleet. All frequencies. If they won't talk, maybe they'll listen. On the Dravik flagship, General Krax came to a similar conclusion, but for different reasons. Dravik culture valued honor and strength above all else. Dying in battle was glorious. But this wasn't battle. This was slaughter. There was no honor in being erased from existence while your weapons uselessly splashed against impossible shields. Enough, Krax said. Cease fire. All ships, stop firing immediately. His officers looked shocked. Sir, we're Dravik. We don't retreat. We're not retreating, Krax said firmly. We're acknowledging reality. These humans have weapons and technology we cannot match. Continuing to fight them is not brave. It's stupid, and the Dravik do not survive by being stupid. The Cathrel Collective reached its decision through pure logic. The collective calculated probabilities. Current survival rate, decreasing exponentially. Probability of victory 0. Optimal strategy. Cease hostile actions and attempt communication. But the collective had one problem. It didn't know how to surrender. The Cathrel had never surrendered before. The concept wasn't in their collective memory. They had either won battles or been completely destroyed. There was no middle option in their experience. So the collective did the only thing it could think of. It stopped moving. All 3 million remaining Cathrel drones simply stopped in space, their weapons powered down, waiting to see what would happen. On the Indomitable, Commander Park noticed first. Admiral, enemy fire has stopped. All 3 empires have ceased hostilities. Confirm, Chen ordered. Confirmed. Gentar fleet is holding position. Weapons powered down. Dravik fleet is doing the same. Cathrel drones are completely still. Admiral, I think they're trying to surrender. Chen allowed herself a small breath. How many ships have they lost? Gentar, approximately 1,200 vessels. Dravik, 900 vessels. Cathrel, 4.2 million drones. Total enemy losses roughly 60% of their original force. 60% gone in 17 minutes. Chen closed her eyes briefly, thinking of all those lives. Billions of beings who had been erased from existence. Not because humanity wanted to kill them, but because they had refused to stop killing each other. Time to see if they'll listen now, Chen said. Open a channel. All frequencies. Let's see if we can end this without erasing the rest of them. On every ship in the 3 fleets, communication systems suddenly came to life. A voice spoke in perfect Gentar, Dravik, and Cathrel languages simultaneously. It was a woman's voice, calm and cold. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Human Space Force. For 17 minutes, we have demonstrated our capability. For 17 minutes, you have watched your fleets die. You now have a choice. Stand down completely and await further instructions, or continue fighting and be erased entirely. You have 60 seconds to decide. After that, we will assume you have chosen extinction. On the Eternal Glory, Commander Zelthus immediately responded. This is Commander Zelthus of the Gentar Hegemony. We acknowledge your superiority. We surrender our forces and await your instructions. General Krax was slower to respond, pride warring with survival instinct. But after 30 seconds, he spoke. This is General Krax of the Dravik Union. We acknowledge defeat. We will comply with your orders. The Cathrel Collective sent a simple mathematical sequence that translated to understood. Awaiting instructions. Will comply. Admiral Chen looked at her chronometer. 45 seconds had passed. All 3 empires had responded. They had chosen survival over pride. All human ships, cease fire, Chen ordered. Maintain combat readiness, but do not engage unless fired upon. Looks like they're ready to talk now. Commander Park was looking at the casualty estimates on his screen. Admiral, we've just erased a significant portion of 3 major galactic civilizations. The Council is going to have questions. Let them ask, Chen said. We came here under Council authority to establish peace. We've established it. The fact that we had to erase thousands of ships to do it is a testament to how badly these empires needed to be stopped. What happens now? Now, Chen said, we deliver the message. The one that Earth Command wants these empires to hear. The one that every warlike species in the galaxy needs to understand. She paused, looking at the 3 defeated fleets on her display. 3 proud empires brought low in less than 20 minutes. Now we teach them what humanity learned the hard way. That there are worse things than losing. that endless war destroys everyone it touches, and that there will always be someone stronger, someone willing to do what's necessary to stop the killing. Chen sat down in her command chair. Prepare a message for transmission. It's time to explain to these three empires exactly why humanity came all this way to interfere in their war, and it's time to explain what happens next. In the silence of space, surrounded by the ghost echoes of thousands of vanished ships, the human fleet waited. They had demonstrated their power. Now they would demonstrate their purpose, and three empires would learn that humanity had not come to conquer them. They had come to save them from themselves. Admiral Chen stood alone in her ready room, looking at the star map displayed on her wall. The Valorian cluster glowed with markers showing the positions of three defeated fleets. She had been preparing this speech in her mind for weeks, ever since Earth Command had given her this mission. Now it was time to deliver it. She touched the communication panel. This is Admiral Chen to all vessels in the Valorian cluster. What I am about to tell you will be transmitted simultaneously to your command ships and to the Galactic Council. This message will be recorded and added to permanent records. I want there to be no misunderstanding about what has happened here today and what will happen next. Chen paused, gathering her thoughts. Across the cluster, millions of beings listened. On the Eternal Glory, Commander Zeltha stood at attention despite being alone in his command chamber. On the Unbreakable Mountain, General Crack sat in his war room, his forearms folded, his expression unreadable. The Cathrel Collective focused a significant portion of its consciousness on receiving and analyzing every word. For 32 years, Chen began, the Gentar hegemony, the Dravik Union, and the Cathrel Collective have been at war in this region of space. In that time, you have destroyed 17 star systems. You have rendered 12 planets completely uninhabitable. You have killed over 50 billion sentient beings, the majority of them civilians who had nothing to do with your conflict. She let that number sink in. 50 billion. More than the entire population of Earth. The Galactic Council has tried to mediate. They sent diplomats. They passed resolutions. They begged you to stop. You ignored them all. Every attempt at peace was rejected. Every ceasefire lasted only days before someone broke it. You were so committed to destroying each other that you couldn't see you were destroying yourselves in the process. On the Eternal Glory, Zelthus felt something like shame. It was true. The Council had tried. His own government had rejected 4 separate peace proposals. Each time they had claimed the terms were unacceptable. Each time they had insisted on military victory instead. Chen continued. 8 months ago, humanity joined the Galactic Council. We are new to space. We are primitive by your standards. We have technology you consider crude. When we asked to help mediate this conflict, you laughed at us. You called us children. You said we knew nothing of galactic warfare. A long pause. You were wrong. Chen's voice grew harder. Humanity knows war. We know it better than any species in this galaxy. For thousands of years, we fought each other on our homeworld. We developed weapons to kill each other in ever more efficient ways. We split the atom and immediately used it to destroy cities. We created poison gas, biological weapons, nuclear bombs. We fought 2 world wars that killed hundreds of millions of our own people. She walked to her window, looking out at the stars. We fought wars over religion, over resources, over ideology, over land, over insults to national pride. We fought wars for good reasons and terrible reasons and no reason at all. We became very, very good at killing each other. On the Dravik flagship, General Krax listened with growing understanding. Perhaps these humans did understand warfare after all. But we learned something, Chen said. We learned that war has a cost that goes beyond the bodies and the ships and the planets. Every war we fought made the next war more likely. Every grievance created new grievances. Every death demanded revenge, which led to more deaths, which demanded more revenge. We were caught in a cycle that was destroying our entire species. The Cathrel Collective processed this information. It understood cycles. The collective had been caught in a cycle with the Dravik and Gentar. Kill or be killed. Attack or be attacked. Trust was impossible when survival was at stake. 70 years ago, Chen said, humanity nearly destroyed itself completely. We came within minutes of launching enough nuclear weapons to make Earth uninhabitable. We stood at the edge of extinction and looked into the void. And in that moment, we made a choice. We chose to step back. We chose to end the cycle. She turned back to the display. It wasn't easy. We had to overcome centuries of hatred. We had to rebuild trust that had been shattered. We had to learn to solve problems without violence. It took decades. It's still not perfect, but we learned. We survived, and when we reached for the stars, we made a promise to ourselves. We would never again let hatred destroy us, and we would never stand by and watch other species make the same mistakes we made. Commander Zeltas felt a chill run through his scales. He was beginning to understand what the humans had done. They hadn't come here to conquer. They had come to intervene, to stop the cycle before all three empires destroyed each other completely. That's why we came here, Chen said. Not to fight you, not to conquer you, not to destroy you. We came to stop you from destroying yourselves. We gave you chances. We sent ambassadors. We asked for peace. You rejected it all. You chose to continue your war. Her voice became cold as steel. So we made the decision that needed to be made. If you would not stop yourselves, we would stop you. We built a fleet in secret. We developed weapons specifically designed to end this conflict with minimum loss of life. Weapons that erase ships but leave rescue possible. Weapons that end fights quickly rather than dragging them out. That explained the purple spheres, Zeltas realized. The humans could have used weapons that destroyed ships with massive explosions. Instead, they used weapons that simply removed ships from existence. Clean, efficient, no debris to create secondary casualties. It was horrifyingly merciful. In 17 minutes, Chen said, we erased 60% of your combined fleets. We did this not because we enjoyed it. Not because we wanted to prove we were stronger. We did it because you gave us no choice, and we did it to teach you a lesson that humanity learned at terrible cost. She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was almost gentle. The lesson is this: there is always someone stronger. There is always a bigger threat. If you spend all your time fighting each other, you will not survive. Unity is not weakness. Cooperation is not surrender. Peace is not defeat. These are the hardest lessons to learn, especially for proud warrior cultures. But they are true. General Krax found himself nodding slowly. The Dravik prided themselves on strength. They believed that the strongest survived. But the humans had just proven they were stronger, and yet they had stopped fighting as soon as the three empires surrendered. True strength, perhaps, was knowing when not to fight. Here are your new orders, Chen said, and now her voice carried absolute authority. All three fleets will immediately withdraw to your home systems. All hostilities will cease permanently. All three empires will begin negotiations for a permanent peace treaty. These negotiations will be mediated by human observers and Galactic Council representatives. She brought up a new display showing the 17 destroyed star systems. All three empires will contribute resources to rebuild what you have destroyed. The planets you made uninhabitable will be restored. The civilians you displaced will be returned to their homes. The species you have nearly driven to extinction will be protected and allowed to recover. Zeltas wanted to object. The cost would be enormous. It would take centuries. It would strain the hegemony's resources to the breaking point. But he looked at the human ships still surrounding his fleet and said nothing. You will also submit to war crimes tribunals, Chen continued. Individuals responsible for ordering attacks on civilian populations will be held accountable. This is not negotiable. Justice will be served. The Cathrel Collective sent a query. What if we refuse these terms? Chen's response was immediate. Then we will erase the rest of your fleets and we will blockade your home systems until you comply. We have proven we can do this. Do not test our resolve. The collective calculated probabilities and found that the human admiral was not bluffing. The humans had demonstrated both the capability and the will to enforce their demands. Compliance was the only logical option. There is one more thing you need to understand, Chen said. What humanity has done here today, we will do anywhere in this galaxy that we find endless war destroying innocent lives. We are establishing a new doctrine. We call it Never Again. She pulled up historical records from Earth. Images of devastated cities, mushroom clouds, mass graves, refugees fleeing burning homes. This is what war did to humanity. This is what war is doing to your empires. Never again will we allow this to happen without intervention. Not on Earth, not on your worlds, not anywhere. On ships across the cluster, crews watched the images from Earth's history. Many were shocked. The humans had done this to themselves, and they had survived. And now they were trying to prevent other species from making the same mistakes? You may hate us for what we did today, Chen said. You may resent being forced to stop fighting. You may think we had no right to interfere, but understand this: in 17 minutes we saved more lives than we took. If your war had continued for even one more day, casualties would have exceeded what happened here today. If it had continued for a month, millions more would have died. We ended it now, quickly and decisively, to prevent even greater loss. She looked directly into the camera, knowing that somewhere, the leaders of 3 empires were watching. History will judge whether we did the right thing, but we will not apologize for choosing to act instead of standing by while billions more died. We will not apologize for having the strength to do what was necessary, and we will not apologize for demanding that you be better than your worst instincts. There was a long silence. Then Chen said, "However, humanity is not interested in domination. We are not here to rule you. We are here to help you rebuild." As of this moment, humanitarian ships are preparing to enter the Valorian cluster. They carry medical supplies, food, construction materials, and rescue equipment. The display changed, showing hundreds of ships with red cross markings approaching from human space. These ships are unarmed. They exist only to help. They will search for survivors from the ships we erased. They will provide aid to wounded soldiers. They will begin the work of cleaning up the devastation this war created. Zeltha stared at the screen in disbelief. The humans had just destroyed his fleet, and now they were sending rescue ships? What kind of species does this? "We will help you rebuild," Chen said. "Not because we pity you. Not because we want to control you. But because this is what civilized species do. They help each other. They lift each other up. They recognize that we are all sharing this galaxy, and what happens to one species affects all species." She straightened in her uniform. "You have 48 hours to begin your withdrawal. Human ships will escort your fleets to ensure there are no further incidents. Medical personnel from our humanitarian vessels will be made available to treat your wounded. We will provide you with detailed plans for the peace negotiations and the rebuilding process." Chen's expression softened slightly. "I know this is difficult. I know your pride is wounded along with your fleets. I know you are angry and confused and probably scared. These are normal reactions, but I also know that in time you will understand why we did this. You will see that forcing peace now prevents the complete destruction of your civilizations later." She took a breath. "Humanity has walked the path you are on. We know where it leads. We barely survived the journey. We are trying to help you survive yours. Whether you accept that help willingly or reluctantly is up to you, but you will accept it." The transmission paused, and then Chen added one final thing. "To the soldiers and crews of the Gentar, Dravik, and Cathrel fleets, you fought bravely. You served your empires with honor. What happened here today does not diminish your courage or your loyalty. You faced an enemy with superior technology, and you stood your ground until your commanders made the wise decision to surrender. There is no shame in that. In the coming days, you will have the difficult task of making peace with former enemies. This will test you more than any battle, but if you succeed, you will have accomplished something greater than any military victory. You will have saved your civilizations." Chen stepped back. "This concludes my message. All fleet commanders should stand by for detailed instructions. The humanitarian vessels will arrive within 6 hours. Admiral Chen out." The transmission ended. Across the Valorian cluster, silence fell. The 3 defeated fleets hung in space, trying to process everything they had heard, trying to understand what had just happened to them, trying to imagine a future without war. On the Eternal Glory, Commander Zelthus found that his hands were shaking. He had commanded fleets for 60 years. He had fought in dozens of battles. He had destroyed enemy ships and celebrated victories. And in 17 minutes, a species he had considered primitive had defeated him utterly. But more than that, they had shown him something he had never seen before. They had shown him that strength and compassion were not opposites. That power could be used to heal as well as to harm. That the strongest choice was sometimes to stop fighting. He opened a comm channel to his fleet. "All Gentar vessels, this is Commander Zelthus. Prepare to withdraw to home system as ordered. All weapons will remain powered down. Any ship that fires without direct authorization from me will be considered mutinous." He paused. "The war is over. It's time to go home." On the Dravik flagship, General Krax made a similar announcement, and the Cathrel Collective sent instructions to its remaining drones. In her ready room, Admiral Chen allowed herself to sit down. The hard part was done. The fighting was over. Now came the harder part, actually building a lasting peace. Commander Park entered. "Admiral, all 3 fleets are beginning withdrawal procedures. No signs of resistance. The humanitarian ships are on schedule. Good, Chen said tiredly. How many lives did we save by ending this today? Park consulted his datapad. Based on casualty projections, if the war had continued, approximately 15 billion over the next standard year alone. If the war had escalated as predicted, possibly 50 billion over the next decade. 15 billion lives saved, at the cost of the ships and crews they had erased today. It was still a terrible price, but it was better than the alternative. Make sure that number gets included in our report to Earth Command, Chen said. I want history to remember why we did this, not just what we did. Yes, Admiral. Chen looked out at the stars again. Somewhere out there, other wars were probably starting. Other species were making the same mistakes. And someday humanity might have to do this again. But today, in this place, they had stopped one war. They had saved billions of lives. They had shown the galaxy that humanity would not stand by and watch genocide happen. They had lived up to their promise, never again. 6 months had passed since the Battle of Valorian Cluster. The galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. On the reconstructed colony of Valorian Prime, the world that had sparked the war 3 decades ago, representatives from the Gentar hegemony, the Dravik Union, and the Cathrel Collective sat together in the same room for the first time without weapons. The peace conference had been going on for weeks, supervised by human observers and Galactic Council mediators. Lieutenant James Morrison, a young human Marine, stood guard outside the conference hall. He wasn't there to protect anyone from external threats. He was there to remind everyone inside that humanity was watching. That if the peace broke down, the consequences would be immediate and severe. A Gentar diplomat named Kellyanne approached him during a break in the negotiations. Her silver scales were dull with stress. Tell me, Lieutenant, how does your species do this? Do what, ma'am? Morrison asked politely. Sit with former enemies and talk instead of fight. We have been trying for weeks and every session ends in arguments. The Dravik refuse to apologize for their attacks on our colonies. We refuse to acknowledge our strikes on their fuel depots. The Cathrel simply state facts and refuse to engage emotionally. How do we move past this? Morrison thought carefully before answering. He had been briefed on what to say in situations like this. Ma'am, after our last World War, the nations that had been enemies for generations had to learn to work together. It took years. There were setbacks. People who lost families in the war didn't want to forgive. But slowly we learned that holding on to hatred hurt us more than it hurt our enemies. But surely your cultures were similar, Kellyanne said. We are 3 completely different species with completely different values. That's actually an advantage, Morrison said. You're so different that you can't threaten each other's identity. The Dravik can be Dravik, the Gentar can be Gentar, and the Cathrel can be Cathrel. You're not trying to make each other into something else. You're just trying to stop killing each other. That's a lower bar than you think. Kellyanne considered this. The human admiral said something similar in her message. That unity is not sameness. That we can be different and still be peaceful. Yes, ma'am. And it helps that you all have a bigger concern now. What concern? Morrison smiled slightly. You're all wondering what else humanity is hiding. If we could build 800 advanced warships in secret, what else can we do? That question is probably keeping your leaders up at night. Kellyanne's scales rippled with what might have been amusement. You are not wrong, Lieutenant. The intelligence agencies of all 3 empires have been frantically trying to assess human capabilities. They have found very little information. That's intentional, ma'am. We prefer to keep our cards close. It is an effective strategy. Fear of the unknown is a powerful motivator for peace. Kellyanne started to return to the conference, then paused. Lieutenant, may I ask you something personal? Of course. Do you believe we can really make this peace permanent? Or will we eventually return to fighting each other? Morrison met her eyes. Ma'am, I believe that any species smart enough to build starships is smart enough to learn not to destroy each other. Whether you actually do it or not, that's up to you. We can enforce peace for now, but eventually you'll have to want it for yourselves. After she left, Morrison's partner, Sergeant Maria Okonkwo, stepped out from the building. You're getting good at the diplomat talk, she said. I hate it, Morrison admitted. I'm a Marine. I should be breaking things, not having philosophical conversations. Welcome to the new galaxy, Okonkwo said, where Marines guard peace talks instead of fighting battles. Is this what we're going to be doing from now on? Playing peacekeepers across the galaxy? Okonkwo shrugged. Admiral Chen thinks so. She gave an interview last week. said that humanity's role in the galactic community is to be the civilization that remembers what war costs, the ones who step in when things get out of hand. That's a heavy burden. It is, but someone has to do it. Far away on the Galactic Council station, Ambassador Maria Santos sat in her office reviewing reports. The political situation in the galaxy had shifted dramatically. The three former warring empires were now focused on rebuilding and on watching humanity with wary respect. Other species that had previously dismissed Earth were suddenly very interested in establishing diplomatic relations. Her assistant, a young man named David Chen, entered with another stack of data pads. Ambassador, you have 17 more requests for meetings. Everyone wants to know about our military capabilities. Tell them what we always tell them, Santos said, that humanity prefers peace but is prepared for war, that we have no territorial ambitions but will defend our interests, that we welcome cooperation but will not tolerate aggression. They want specifics. They want to know how many ships we have, what weapons we use, how we developed our technology so quickly, and we will continue to smile politely and tell them nothing. Santos set down the report she was reading. David, what's the current status of the lesser conflicts in the galaxy? The ones that aren't big enough for the Council to intervene in? David pulled up a star map. There are currently 43 ongoing military conflicts across Council space. Most are border disputes or resource conflicts. Nothing on the scale of the Valorian War, but they're still killing millions. Have any of them shown signs of resolving since we ended the Valorian conflict? Actually, yes. 8 conflicts have entered ceasefire negotiations in the last month. 4 have signed preliminary peace agreements. Ambassador, they're scared of us. They're worried we'll do to them what we did to the Gentar, Dravik, and Cathrel. Santos allowed herself a small smile. Good. Fear can be a useful tool if applied correctly. We don't actually want to have to intervene everywhere. We just want species to think we might. So we're bluffing? Not entirely. If necessary, we absolutely will intervene. But it's much better if conflicts resolve themselves because the participants are worried about humanity showing up. David looked uncomfortable. Ambassador, some council members are calling us bullies. They say we enforced our will through superior violence, that we're no better than the empires we stopped. Santos's expression hardened. Those council members stood by and watched 50 billion beings die over 32 years. They wrote strongly worded resolutions and made speeches about peace while planets burned. We ended the war in 17 minutes. Tell me, David, who has the moral high ground here? I know, ma'am. It's just some of the things I've read in the reports. The way we erased those ships. The crew's just gone, like they never existed. I know, Santos said more gently. It's horrific. War is always horrific. But what would have been more moral? Letting the war continue for another decade? Watching billions more die while we wrung our hands and claimed we couldn't intervene? Sometimes there are no good choices, only less terrible ones. She stood and walked to her window, looking out at the stars. Earth Command gave Admiral Chen specific orders. End the war with minimal casualties to our forces and to civilians. She accomplished that objective. Yes, we erased thousands of military vessels, but we saved billions of civilian lives, and we sent a message to every aggressive species in the galaxy. Humanity will not tolerate genocide. Do you think they'll test us? David asked. Do you think someone will start a war just to see if we'll really intervene again? I hope not. But we need to be ready if they do. At that moment, Admiral Chen was having a similar conversation aboard the Indomitable, which had remained in the Valorian cluster as part of the peacekeeping force. Commander Park brought her the latest intelligence report. Admiral, we're picking up increased military activity in the Korath sector. 2 species, the Velm and the Sarathi, are having a dispute over mining rights. Ships are massing at the border. Chen studied the report. Casualties so far? None yet, but both sides are mobilizing. The Galactic Council estimates if fighting starts, we could see death tolls in the millions within the first month. Have they requested council mediation? The council offered. Both sides refused. Chen was quiet for a long moment. Recommendations? The Korath sector is 3 weeks away at maximum speed. If we're going to intervene, we need to leave soon. But Admiral, we don't have authorization. Earth Command hasn't approved any new operations. Request authorization, Chen said. Explain the situation. Explain the projected casualties. Let them know that if we wait for council politics to play out, a lot of people are going to die unnecessarily. And if they say no, Chen smiled grimly, then I'll ask them to send a different admiral. Because I didn't come out here to watch from the sidelines while people die. 3 days later, Earth Command's response came through. It was surprisingly short. Authorization granted. Proceed as you see fit. Try not to start a galactic incident. They're giving us a lot of trust, Park said. They're giving us a lot of responsibility, Chen corrected. There's a difference. The Indomitable and 40 other human warships departed for the Korath sector. When they arrived 2 weeks later, they found the Velm and Sarathi fleets positioned across a disputed asteroid field, weapons charged and ready to fire. Chen sent a simple message. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Human Space Force. We are here under Galactic Council Peacekeeping Authority. Both fleets will power down weapons and withdraw to neutral positions for mediation. You have 10 minutes to comply. If you choose to fight instead, you will be fighting us first. The Velm commander responded immediately. We do not recognize human authority in this matter. This is a regional dispute. The Sarathi commander agreed. The humans have no right to interfere here. This does not concern your species, Chen sighed. Commander Park, power up the quantum disruptors. Let's see if they recognize authority after a demonstration. She targeted a small asteroid between the two fleets. A purple sphere erupted from the Indomitable and touched the asteroid. The massive rock, several kilometers across, simply ceased to exist. 10 seconds later, both fleets sent messages indicating their willingness to enter mediation talks. Back on the Galactic Council station, the news of humanity's second intervention spread quickly. Some species praised the humans for preventing another war. Others worried about humanity becoming a self-appointed police force for the entire galaxy. Ambassador Santos found herself called before the full council to explain Earth's actions. Mediator Fornal addressed her directly. Ambassador Santos, humanity has now intervened in 2 conflicts without waiting for full council authorization. Some members are concerned that Earth is taking too much authority upon itself. Santos stood calmly. Mediator, the council charter allows member species to volunteer for peacekeeping operations. That's what we're doing. We're volunteering to prevent wars before they start, rather than writing resolutions after millions have died. But you are using the threat of force to achieve diplomatic goals. A representative from the Peaceful Consortium objected. That is not true peacekeeping. No, Santos agreed. It's not. It's peace enforcement. There's a difference. Peacekeeping happens when parties want peace but need help maintaining it. Peace enforcement happens when parties want war but need to be stopped. The Velm and Sarathi wanted war. We stopped them, just like we stopped the Valorian conflict. And if every conflict in the galaxy requires human intervention? Another representative asked. Will you police all of us? We don't want to police anyone, Santos said. We want species to resolve their own disputes peacefully. But if the alternative is watching billions die while the council debates and passes resolutions, then yes, we will intervene. We will use our capabilities to save lives. That's what civilized species do. The debate went on for hours, but in the end the council could not deny the results. 2 major wars prevented, billions of lives saved, and all with minimal casualties. A resolution was passed officially recognizing humanity's role as a Tier 1 peacekeeping force with expanded authority to intervene in conflicts. The vote was close, but it passed. That evening, Santos sent a message to Admiral Chen. They made it official. We're now the galaxy's peacekeepers. Hope you're ready for this. Chen's response was simple. We have to be. On Valorian Prime, Lieutenant Morrison was finishing his shift when Kelyan approached him again. Lieutenant, I wanted you to know. We reached an agreement today. All 3 empires have signed the preliminary peace treaty. It still needs to be ratified, but the framework is complete. Morrison felt genuine pleasure at the news. That's excellent, ma'am. Congratulations. Thank you. It was difficult. There were moments when I thought we would fail. But every time negotiations seemed ready to collapse, someone would mention the human fleet. And suddenly compromise seemed more attractive than stubbornness. I'm glad we could help, Morrison said diplomatically. Kelyan's scales rippled with what he had learned was amusement. You are still our jailers, Lieutenant. Let us not pretend otherwise. But perhaps you are jailers who want us to eventually walk free. That's exactly what we want, ma'am. After she left, Sergeant Okonkwo joined him. You hear? They signed the treaty. Yeah, we did it. We actually stopped a 32-year war. We erased a bunch of ships and scared them into peace, Okonkwo corrected. That's not quite the same as solving the underlying problems. Maybe not. But it's a start. Across the galaxy, in a quiet orbital station near Saturn, a meeting was taking place that would shape humanity's future role in the galaxy. Admiral Chen had been recalled to Earth for the meeting. She sat at a table with representatives from Earth's major governments, military leaders, and civilian advisors. The Secretary General of Earth, an elderly woman named Sarah Kamani, spoke first. Admiral Chen, your actions in the Valorian cluster and the Korath sector have fundamentally changed humanity's position in the galactic community. We went from being ignored newcomers to being feared as the galaxy's enforcers. The question now is, what do we do with that position? Chen had been expecting this conversation. Ma'am, we have 3 options. First, we can step back. Stop intervening. Let other species solve their own problems. Second, we can continue as we are, responding to conflicts as they arise. Third, we can be proactive, establishing clear rules about what behavior we will and won't tolerate. What do you recommend? Asked General Martinez, head of Earth's combined military forces. I recommend option 3, Chen said firmly. If we step back now, every aggressive species will assume we were bluffing. Wars will restart. The death toll will be astronomical. If we only respond reactively, we'll always be too late to prevent the worst casualties. But if we establish clear guidelines now, we can prevent most conflicts before they start. You're talking about becoming the galaxy's police force, Kamani said. I'm talking about being what the Galactic Council should have been but wasn't, Chen replied. A force that actually enforces peace rather than just talking about it. A civilian advisor named Dr. Rachel Foster spoke up. Admiral, there's a concern that this path leads to imperialism. Today we're stopping genocidal wars. Tomorrow, are we telling species how to govern themselves? Where does it end? Chen had thought about this question many times. It ends with clear limits. We intervene only in cases of mass casualties, genocide, or wars that threaten galactic stability. We don't interfere in internal politics unless they involve mass murder. We don't impose our values or our systems. We simply enforce one rule. You cannot commit genocide. Everything else is up to individual species. And if a species decides to test us? Martinez asked. If someone deliberately starts a war to see if we'll really fight, then we demonstrate again that we're not bluffing, Chen said coldly. We erase their military capability and force them to the negotiating table, just like we did twice already. Kimani looked around the table. This is a heavy burden we're considering. We're talking about making humanity responsible for maintaining peace across thousands of light years. We're talking about potentially fighting wars on multiple fronts. Can we even sustain this? We have to, Chen said, because no one else will. The Galactic Council has proven they can't stop major conflicts. Individual species only care about their own interests. Someone has to be willing to step up and say no more. That someone is us. Why us? Dr. Foster asked. Why does it have to be humanity? Chen smiled sadly. Because we're the only species in this galaxy that nearly destroyed itself and learned from it. Every other advanced species either avoided self-destruction or didn't survive it. We're unique. We have perspective that comes from experience. We know what happens when you let wars continue too long. We've seen the cost of inaction, and we have the technology and the will to do something about it. The debate continued for hours, but in the end the decision was made. Humanity would embrace its role as the galaxy's peacekeepers, not conquerors, not rulers, but enforcers of one simple principle: never again. 3 months later, Admiral Chen stood once again on the bridge of the Indomitable. The ship was orbiting a newly constructed station in neutral space. The station would serve as humanity's forward operating base for peacekeeping operations. Commander Park approached with a report. Admiral, we're receiving signals from multiple conflicts across the galaxy. The Council has forwarded 7 requests for intervention. 7? Chen raised an eyebrow. That's more than usual. Yes, ma'am. It seems word has spread that we're actively looking to prevent wars. Species in conflict are actually asking for our help now, rather than us having to force our way in. Chen felt a small sense of satisfaction. That's progress. Which conflicts are most urgent? The Draken and Silvari have been fighting over a border world for 5 years. Casualties are in the low millions. The crystalline collective and the methane breathers are having resource disputes that could turn violent. And there's a civil war on Tarkos Prime that's threatening to go genocidal. Prepare 3 task forces, Chen ordered. We'll split our fleet to address multiple situations simultaneously. Send our most experienced diplomats with each group. Let's see if we can resolve these without firing a shot. And if diplomacy fails, then we do what we do best. We demonstrate that continued violence is not an option. Over the following weeks, human task forces deployed across the galaxy. Not all conflicts were resolved peacefully. Twice, human ships had to fire their quantum disruptors to convince stubborn commanders that peace was not optional. But more often, the mere presence of human vessels was enough to bring warring parties to the negotiating table. The galaxy was learning a new reality. Humanity was watching. Humanity would intervene, and humanity could not be defeated through conventional warfare. On Earth, in a small apartment in São Paulo, a young girl named Anna Chen sat with her grandfather, watching the news. Her grandfather was retired Admiral Marcus Chen, Sarah Chen's uncle, who had commanded Earth's defense forces during the Unification Wars. "Grandpa," Anna asked, "why did Aunt Sarah have to go to space and fight aliens?" Marcus considered how to explain it to a 7-year-old. "Because someone had to stop them from hurting each other, Anna. And your aunt is very good at stopping people from hurting each other." "But isn't fighting bad?" "Fighting is bad," Marcus agreed. "But sometimes you have to fight to make people stop fighting. It's confusing, I know. But imagine if someone at school was bullying other kids and they wouldn't stop even when the teachers asked them to. Eventually, someone stronger has to step in and make them stop. Is that what Aunt Sarah does? She makes the aliens stop being bullies?" "Yes, that's exactly what she does." Anna thought about this. "When I grow up, I want to be like Aunt Sarah. I want to stop bullies too." Marcus hugged his granddaughter. "Then you'll have to be very brave, and very smart, and very strong, because stopping bullies is hard work." "I can do it," Anna said with the confidence of childhood. "If Aunt Sarah can, so can I." Marcus smiled, but inside he felt a chill. A new generation was growing up thinking of space not as a frontier to explore, but as a place that needed protection, thinking of military service not as defending Earth, but as defending the entire galaxy. The burden humanity had taken on would be carried by generations yet unborn. Back on the Indomitable, Admiral Chen received a message from the Galactic Council. It was from Mediator Vornal himself. "Admiral Chen, I wanted to personally acknowledge what humanity has accomplished. In 6 months, you have prevented 12 major conflicts and ended 2 ongoing wars. You have saved an estimated 20 billion lives. The Council's official position is gratitude, though some members remain concerned about your methods." Chen sent a reply. "Mediator Vornal, I appreciate the acknowledgement. I want you to know that humanity does not enjoy this role. We would much prefer that species resolve their differences peacefully without our intervention. But until that happens, we will continue to do what's necessary." Vornal's response came an hour later. "I believe you, Admiral. And I believe that is what makes humanity uniquely suited for this role. You see it as a burden, not an opportunity. You do not want power for its own sake. You want peace. Thank you, Mediator. That means more than you know. There is one more thing, Admiral. I am old even by my species standards. I have been Mediator for 80 years. In that time, I have seen the Council fail repeatedly to stop wars. I have watched as billions died while we debated and passed resolutions. I have felt the weight of those failures. I'm sorry, Mediator. Don't be. What I'm trying to say is that humanity is doing what the Council should have done decades ago. You are succeeding where we failed. And for that, I'm grateful. Perhaps you are what the galaxy needed all along, a species young enough to still believe peace is possible, and strong enough to enforce it." Chen read the message several times. It was the closest thing to a blessing she was likely to receive from the galactic establishment. She looked out at the stars, thinking about the future. Somewhere out there, species were fighting each other right now. Somewhere, civilians were dying in wars they didn't start and couldn't end. Somewhere, another conflict was brewing that would eventually require human intervention. But also somewhere out there, species that had been at war for decades were learning to talk instead of fight. Children who would have grown up orphaned were living with their families. Worlds that would have been burned were intact and thriving, all because humanity had decided that never again meant never again for anyone, not just for humans. "Admiral," Commander Park said, interrupting her thoughts. We're receiving a distress call from the outer reaches. A species called the Zipheron is reporting that their neighbors, the krill, are massing ships at their border. Chen sighed. How many ships? Approximately 5,000. The Zipheron only have 300. Then they're outmatched. Chen turned to her tactical officer. How long to reach the outer reaches? 2 weeks at maximum quantum speed, Admiral. Make it happen, and send a message ahead. Tell both species that the human fleet is en route. Tell them that if they start fighting before we arrive, they'll be fighting us when we get there. Yes, ma'am. Admiral, do you think this will ever end? Will there ever be a time when we don't have to do this? Chen considered the question honestly. Maybe. Maybe someday the galaxy will learn that war doesn't pay. That cooperation is more profitable than conflict. That diversity is strength, not weakness. Maybe our grandchildren will live in that galaxy. But not us? No, not us! We're the generation that has to build it. We're the ones who have to do the hard work, the ugly work, the work that history might judge harshly. But if we do it right, the next generation won't have to. The Indomitable began to accelerate, pulling away from the station. Around it, 40 other human warships formed up. They jumped to quantum speed, crossing the vast distances between stars in pursuit of peace. On the Zipheron homeworld, a young child looked up at the sky and saw strange lights appearing. Ships unlike anything in their database, ships that moved with impossible grace and radiated immense power. The Zipheron defense minister received a message in perfect Zipheron language. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Human Space Force. We have received your distress call. We are here to help. Please stand by. And on the Krill flagship, a commander who had been planning to launch an invasion received a different message. This is Admiral Sarah Chen. If you attack the Zipheron, you attack us. Choose wisely. The Krill fleet stopped advancing. They had heard the stories about humans, about ships that erased other ships from existence, about technology that made mockery of conventional warfare, about a species that would cross the galaxy to stop a fight between strangers. The invasion was called off. Negotiations began. And across the galaxy, on thousands of worlds, beings looked up at the stars and knew that somewhere out there, humanity was watching. Ready to intervene, ready to stop the next war before it could begin. It was not the galaxy anyone had expected. It was not the future anyone had planned. But it was a future where genocide was no longer tolerated, where endless wars could be ended, where the strong could be stopped and the weak could be protected. It was a future that humanity had bought with superior technology and the willingness to use it. A future enforced by quantum disruptors and backed by an iron will. But most importantly, it was a future where the words, "never again," meant something real. Where the cycle of violence that had plagued civilizations for millennia could finally be broken. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of her ship, watching the stars stream past as they rushed toward another conflict, another intervention, another chance to save lives. She didn't know if history would remember her as a hero or a tyrant. She didn't know if humanity's methods would be vindicated or condemned. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. Every being whose life was saved, every child who grew up without war, every civilization that learned to resolve differences peacefully, made the burden worth carrying. The human fleet entered the Zipheron system, silent, unstoppable, ready to erase violence itself if necessary, and the galaxy took notice.